history, 400 years of history. We're going to take you from 1600 to 1700, 1800, 1900s to the year 2000. And in this story, it's your history, it's your ancestors. Be proud of it. You'll hear everything that our nation has done, our people, everything that our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ have done to get us here today with our culture intact, with our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ's responsibility for these watersheds intact today. And from that, you know what an honor it is to be here, to walk in our ancestors' footsteps. In this presentation, you won't hear anywhere that ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ has surrendered our lands, lost our lands in a war. You won't hear that we've signed any treaties, ceded or extinguished any of our rights and title. So we'll start this presentation in the 1600s. At this time, you find ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ as the Cedar Salmon people. There would be 10,000 ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, different nations further up the coast, but for ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ there'd be 10,000 from the villages of ʔiiḥmisʔas, on the islands, on the peninsula of Tofino, and out at Kennedy Lakes. Every part of our life had cedar in it. Our clothing, our tools, our implements of our mode of transport, our housing, and our clothing was all made of red cedar. Yet with 10,000 ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, the mountains were still covered in trees, and you would not know that we were harvesting that much cedar from it. And that was because the laws of our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, the laws of our land were really vibrant. Our laws of Esau, of respect, our laws of reciprocity, that you're giving back to Mother Earth for what she's providing you, and that you were humble and grateful for what you were receiving from Mother Earth, that you were praying and asking, thanking the tree for giving that cedar board to you, that you would return salmon bones to the river to keep this cycle of life going. Our laws of ʔiiḥmisʔas, which is everything is connected. ʔiiḥmisʔas means everything, and ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ is one. Everything is one. We lived in the web of life. We weren't on top of it like a pyramid with man up top. We were inside the web of life. And that's what our laws, our principles of our society were. ʔiiḥmisʔas. We're also known as the whaling society. We were one of the very few in the world that hunted whales. If you look at the earth, all of Europe is all terrestrial, farmers and hunters and gatherers. All of North America, hunters and gatherers. You go down south in the equator, there's so much other tropical fish that they didn't need to hunt whales. But ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ was one of their very few in the world that was a whale hunting society. And that was a tremendous task. I have a lot of respect for our ancestors that did that. I'm also grateful for a new relationship we have with whales now, that we participate in economies through whale watching and not having to hunt them. Yet I'm also proud of what our ancestors did and the strength that they had to do that. I've heard it described as 9 mice taking one of you down. Imagine a little train of mice taking and tackling you down and hunting you. That's how big these animals are. It was a tremendous task. Our whalers would be away for months at a time preparing. They'd be praying to the Creator and asking for this whale to come to you, to give its life to you, to feed your nation. When one whale could feed your nation, there's a tremendous amount of greatness that comes from that. Our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ do not get greatness by naming mountains. You don't see any mountains named after any of our chiefs. There were no monuments made of them. Their greatness came from potlatching, from feeding their people. In fact, our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ is 10. It talks of his ability to catch 10 whales in 1 year. These whales were caught sometimes many days offshore, and our people would have to paddle them home after hunting them. Someone would actually have to dive into the water and sew the lips closed on this whale so that they could tow it home without it filling up with water. Those are some strong people. It was a big task preparing for months. I've even sometimes gone 9 months of the year preparing in the mountains to hunt whales. Whalers were often given high rank because of their ability to catch a whale and feed your people for the hlaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. It's a lot to ask. I know a story of a late friend of mine, late Jerry Jack in Moachit. In the year 2000, he went down to Nia to help them revive the whaling hunt. And he prepared for many months to go and get in the ʔallaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. And he stood up with the spear and he looked at the whale in the eye and he sat back down. He couldn't do it. He was not ready. It's a lot to ask for you to hunt that whale and ask it to give its life to you. Yet, in this time of the 1600s, our laws, these 10,000-year-old laws of potlatching, where our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ are benefiting from our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, they're collecting some fish from all the members that are collecting fish, all parts of their berries, collecting a tax from everybody. And then in the winter, we would move our villages away from the summer villages and we'd go into the winter villages where the chiefs would do their work, where they would do their potlatching, and they would feed our people. It was the responsibility of the ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ to host potlatches. The ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ must start their potlatches by showing their crests at the longhouse. They are the ones that own the songs, the regalia, the crests, the dances. And so, for a potlatch to occur, a ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ must bring their songs. And it was also their job to host these, to acknowledge marriages, coming of age of our young women, of our young men, acknowledging different phases of life, giving new names from children to adult life. And this is a snapshot of our time pre-contact. You would, if you've been on the Jameers Island Big Tree Trail, the boardwalk trail goes to must be a 1,400-year-old tree, and it has a cedar board taken off of it for a longhouse. And that tree is still standing, still cleaning the water, still cleaning the air for us. And that was our laws of respect that allowed that to be and how we harvested. It's much different than modern time, where you take wood by making clear cuts, and the forest floor is just dirt and ground, versus you go in our old growth forest and it's a whole different climate in there. It's cool and you can feel the moisture in the air. So this is some of our life in the 1600s. I'm going to take us forward 100 years or more to the year 1778. 1778, Captain Cook is landing in ʔiiḥmisʔas. He's meeting Chief McQuinnagh from the Moachit Nation. And when he's there, the Moachit people were hollering out at the boat coming in. They're saying, "Nutka, Nutka." And the root word of that is nutkiu, which is round. And they were telling him to go around, you're coming straight in on the rocks. And so it was written in the Spanish journals that they encountered the Nootka people. And for a long time, the ʔiiḥmisʔas people were called the Nootka Tribal Council. And it wasn't until the 70s that we reclaimed our name, the ʔiiḥmisʔas people. Nuchi is the root word, which means all along the mountain, ʔiiḥmisʔas, the people all along the mountain. So, Captain Cook has arrived in ʔiiḥmisʔas. The root word is yu'i, wind. It's the place where the four winds go. So this starts 30 years or more of aggressive trade with ships from Spain, from Britain, and America. And they all arrived under flag. And when a captain of a boat at this time of exploring the New World, captains were given flags from their queen, and they were given charters and mandates to pursue treaties, to pursue war, to pursue trade, to develop and occupy territories directly from their crown. And so when a schooner boat was in our waters, our ʔaḻiiqʔičḥ controlled trade to that. It was our ʔaḻiiqʔiq that traded directly with the captain, directly with the crown of that country. If another nation, if the schooner was in our safe harbors and another chief wanted to trade with that boat, we collected a tax from their fur before they were allowed to trade with that schooner. That was our ʔaḻiiqʔiq, making sure that we're benefiting from what's going on in the ʔaḻiiqʔiq so they could feed our people. We were a very rich nation. One otter pelt, which is what we were trading, one otter pelt was worth 1.5 years' wages of a European male. And that otter pelt was going across the sea, going across the ocean to China, Asia, India, and they were getting spices, silks, gunpowder, ʔałuukʷiʔatḥ. We were getting blankets, metals, knives, glass beads. Sometimes we were getting sugars like molasses. And so 30 years or more of this, 1778, they're landing on the shores. I'll share some more in our language. And I understand our language more by the root words, as you can hear. The word for bird is mamati. The root word is ma'uas, house. Mamati is houses in the trees. The word for the newcomers was mamahni, which means houses so big they lived on the ocean. And you can hear the grandeur that our people allocated to these boats. ʔałuukʷiʔatḥ wanted a boat of our own that big. So we traded 3 years of otter pelts with the American schooners. 3 years of wealth. 3 years of wealth that our ʔałuukʷiʔatḥ should be feeding their people with the wealth that we have traded with the Americans. And this boat was not coming. At the time, this is now 1811. 1811, 1812, 1813. We've traded 3 years of work, summer work, and we're waiting for our boat to come. In this trade dispute with the Americans, different than the Spanish and British, but the Americans had an army base on Mears Island. Around the inlet from ʔiiḥmisʔas, there was a military base called Fort Defiance. And in this dispute, ʔałuukʷiʔatḥ used our shoreline hunting trails, right along the shore, where you're in the shore, where you could still hunt the ducks in the mud flats and hidden in the bushes. And we used that trail to go around the inlet. And we raided the American military base. And on their way out of harbor, Mears Island, they bombed ʔiiḥmisʔas to the ground. And I read in the American journal how the deckhand was upset to see all the artisanry that went into making our village. 2,000 years of artisanry, carved doorways, carved house posts, such a magnificent village brought to the soil in one day, and how sad he was to see that. I also, in the pre-contact, right in the contact era with Spanish coming to Yuquat in Moachin, it was written in the Spanish journals because they had a mast on their boat. And it was written, they want to get a spruce tree for their mast. And it was written in the journal, you can't ask for a blade of grass without these native people wanting to trade for it. And that's again, our make sure we're benefiting from what's going on in the ʔa뾱iiq̑iʔatḥ. You want something from us, we need to trade for it. So in 1811 and 1812, when this vessel of ours is not coming with all of our wealth leaving the ʔa뾱iiq̑iʔatḥ and a raiding of the military base, they would leave and go back, and they'd come back a year later or 2 years later. Nevertheless, when they came back, our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ went to make more trade with the Tonquin vessel, and they went with an armful of more pelts and saying, this is our final trade. This vessel is ours today. And it was a battle, it was a skirmish on that boat. And one of the last remaining deckhands on the vessel went into the powder keg room and lit the powder keg, and the vessel blew up. And we lost a lot of people that day, as well as the Americans. But that anchor at the Village Green is from the Tonquin, is from that day. Well, if you know in your history books, there's a war called the War of 1812, which is the War of Independence in America. Well, this is our experience. This is our truth. In 1812, so when America was first being formed, one of the first presidents of America said that America will pursue manifest destiny, which is a charter for them, that their vision was to unite all of North America under one nation state. And so they began warring northward. And that's what you read in 1812, when Britain and France allied with the Mohawk and the Algonquin and they warred against America. And we settled it with the 49th parallel for Canada, and America did not push northward. Well, at the very same time, there's a military base on Mears Island, there's a trade dispute with ʔałaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, and we sunk their boat. And if it was not for ʔałaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, you'd be living in America today. That's our truth. That's our history. That's our strength. And so this story goes on. And no, we have not surrendered or not lost our land at all. And so Canada is being formed, treaties are being made across Canada. They're being made in Quebec. The first treaty in Canada was in Quebec. It was in the indigenous language. It was a beaded belt. And it's a white belt with 2 blue lines on it. The 2-row wampum belt. And it talks about 2 canoes in one river. One not steering the other canoe at all. We live in the same river, but we don't tell each other what to do. We're sharing, we're living together in this river. That was the first treaty in Canada. And treaties were made across Canada. It was different than in South America. In South America, Spanish went about getting land by cannon fodder and fire and disease and war. In North America, France and Britain came through trade and treaty. They established outposts and trade relationships. Hudson Bay Company were establishing outposts to trade with people, indigenous people. It was not through war. And so treaties were signed. Treaty 8 ended up a little bit in northern BC from Alberta. Yet and then in 1854 now, 1854, Sir Douglas is the governor of British Columbia, and he sees that the indigenous population is falling downward. He says it's too expensive to make treaties, costs too much, takes too much time. The indigenous problem is going to solve itself. We're going to get certainty to land because the indigenous population is going to disappear. We were suffering through epidemics of smallpox and measles. And it even said that some of the blankets that we traded had disease on it, that they were giving us blankets to make us sick. I've seen the census of Łaʻuukʷiʔatḥ village in 1910. It is a list of all the Łaʻuukʷiʔatḥ members, all the ʔałaʔuukʷiʔatḥ members that were living in Łaʻuukʷiʔatḥ. There was 110 ʔałaʔuukʷiʔatḥ in 1910. Those 10 families that were there, we can everyone in image to those 110 people today. That's how we're llaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, those survivors, those families. But I could see, a few decades earlier, starting this story at 10,000 llaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, how in 1910 there was 110 of us. 1854, I could see there would be just that many more of us, and how, the indigenous population is falling. Sir Douglas made 6 treaties in Victoria called the Douglas Treaties. The Esquimalt, Songhees, Saanich, Cowichan, Snuneymuxw. They were one-page treaties, and it gives those indigenous people the right to fish as formerly. In a modern sense, they have a relationship with the crown with the signed treaty, and it's signed with an X. But Sir Douglas did not come to Tofino. He did not come to llaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. Nowhere did a treaty agent come here and sign a treaty. They stopped literally in 1854. Their words. We don't need to make more treaties. This is how Canada's getting certainty to land. Certainty that their government was through treaty making. And they stopped making them in 1854. So we didn't ever see a treaty agent come here and meet with our chiefs. I've seen a journal as well in 1908 when a surveyor was surveying boundaries of Łapitsik, of reservations. And Chief Joseph had asked what they're doing. Why are you surveying here? They said, don't worry, Chief. No one's going to come here. Your land is too treacherous. It's not farmable. It's impregnable. The forest is too dense. Don't worry, no one will come here. So we never really worried. So 1854, they stopped making treaties. Canada changed tactics to get certainty to land. Certainty to land means they have authority to be the government. And they changed their tactic. In 1888, they banned the potlatch. They made it illegal for our ʔaĽiiqʔičḥ to benefit from the ʔaʔuukwi, to collect resources from your homeland and to feed your people. They made it illegal. They made it illegal for ʔaʔuukwi to gather in any significant numbers. Well, this tactic did not work. Banning of the potlatch lasted from 1888 till 1950. This didn't work. We hid our potlatches. We took our crests from our longhouse boards, we put them on curtains, which is what you see today. We have our crests on curtains. And it's if we saw the Indian agent or the RCMP coming up the village path, we would fold up our curtain and pretend like we're not potlatching and we're not doing the chief's work, and doing our ceremonies and the obligations of our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. We also hid our potlatches in Christian holidays. We would be gathering in our kitchens, in our living rooms, and we'd be giving naming ceremonies at Easter, where we really wouldn't get in trouble for gathering at Christmas and Easter, doing some drumming and singing in people's living rooms. You hear stories of that. You hear stories of people drumming and singing, getting their names in living rooms. Oh, we used to do those in our living rooms. Well, that's because we were still hiding. 1950. Another tactic was applied to our people to steal land, and that was in 1898. A missionary school was put on Mayor's Island at Kakowis, and that was to take our culture away from our children, to take our children away from learning where the clam gardens are, to take our children away from learning how to follow the fish around the ʔaʔuukwi, to stop our language and on how to learn about our culture. Well, this didn't work either. This is not a tale of being victims. This is a tale of survivor. Our language is being taught on Zoom. We have a language department. We have a culture program. Our children still go to the clam gardens, and our children still follow the salmon around. And the residential school system lasted from 1898 to 1984. And so we are some of the first generation to not go to that school, to not have PTSD from it. And so we are able to hold our head high that we're still kicking butt. This is our first generation out of that school system designed to break us, but it didn't. We're stronger. Another date in our history is 1960. 1960 is the first time Indigenous people in Canada are allowed to hire a lawyer. It was illegal to approach a lawyer and ask them to work for you as an Indigenous person. Well, the first thing that ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ did with our ability to hire a lawyer was in 1984, was to take British Columbia to court to stop logging on Mears Island. Macmillan Bodell had a plan to take 900,000 cubic meters a year for 3 years and just scalp the mountain. And so we went to court, and it cost us $5 million, which is like $13 million nowadays. We literally foregone building a longhouse or an athletic hall to spend the money in court to stop logging. And we never got that. BC never gave money back to us for what we spent. And we're still fighting for Tofino for just getting a little piece of what they benefit from Mears Island, the drinking water. There's 4 reservoirs on Mears Island that send in a pipe water to Tofino. And when we went to court in 1984, it was not a question in court of how to log, when to log, where, and how much to take. It was a question in court of who has the right, which government has the right to issue a tree farm license, a permit. Who is the authority of the government in this land? And we spent 5 years, $5 million, explaining our crests, our regalia, our songs, our place names, all the continued use of the land. And it came time for British Columbia to show how they have title, how they have jurisdiction, and they could not provide a stitch of evidence. They could not explain how they have the right to issue and be a government and issue a license in our land. And so humbly they begged to get out of court, and they said, we'll put an injunction on logging. We will not log while let's go and negotiate. And so for the first time since 1854, Canada created a treaty process to deal with ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, to deal with us. Our strength brought Canada to have to talk about treaty and relationship to Indigenous people again. And so our elders declared Mears Island Tribal Park. And we set about, our great leaders set about to go and negotiate with Canada how we will now, here's a tribal park, we're explaining what Aboriginal title is, and we will go about negotiating how that fits into Canada. And we worked for 20 years in good faith or more. We voted 2 treaties down. In 1999, we voted the first treaty down, which was an extinguishment treaty. It's a 600-page binder, but you open the binder and the first paragraph was a paragraph saying, we will extinguish Aboriginal rights and replace them with the rights herein. And you'd have these reduced rights on wherever you chose settlement land under a treaty. And that was voted down in 1999. In 2011, another treaty was voted down, which was a cede and surrender model. At the end of every chapter, in this case, at the end of every chapter, it would say, if there's a conflict of law in the forestry chapter, federal and provincial laws will supersede ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ laws. And so that was a no again. We voted that down. Why enshrine a treaty that takes our ability to say no to things in our land? We literally went to court to say how we have the right to say no to what they propose. And our rights and title still exist today. And so here we are still. We haven't signed a treaty. We have not extinguished our rights to our land. We're getting close to modern times as we've tried to continue to negotiate with both levels of government. In 2018, the Masso of ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ told our lands department to approach all the businesses in Tofino and ask for 1% from their business, from their client, and to send it to ḻaʔuukʷiʔatḥ for our right to benefit from our ʔallaʔuukʷi. And that was right when COVID is coming along, and we really didn't get to approach all the businesses as we could. But we've been pursuing it ever since. And it's 2024 now, and we have 125 businesses that are allies. In this time, before this time, the ḻaʔuukʷiʔatḥ court case goes to the Supreme Court of Canada. The Chilcotin court case goes to the Supreme Court of Canada. And the Chilcotin court case says, oh, it's clear that Chilcotin have demonstrated Aboriginal title. And where they have demonstrated strong Aboriginal title, they have a right to derive a benefit from the use of that land. It's in the Supreme Court of Canada. And here we are, a 45-minute presentation of our rights and title, not surrendered, really strong title. And we have Mears Island, which went to the Supreme Court of Canada, really strong title. Well, God bless, we deserve a right to benefit from what's going on in our ʔallaʔuukvi. Today's economy is a $400 million economic engine from tourism. Our Aboriginal title lands bring $400 million economy that's taxed by the other two governments. And we're asking for a piece of what BC collects and a piece of what Canada collects, because it's our right. It's in the UN right. It's the United Nations acknowledged that Indigenous people have a right to derive a benefit from the use of their ancestral lands. It boils my blood. And so it's a human right. At the UN, it's acknowledged this is a human right. And we have to knock on doors. Will you please recognize our human right, dear business, benefiting from our ʔallaʔuukvi? Dear business, will you please recognize our human right? It is a little insulting. I get upset. But I can't be upset. I'm the lands manager, and I have to build bridges to these businesses. I have to be professional. We can't be yelling and screaming. If I protest, it's fine for Muslim to protest, I must say, but if our tribal parks guys do, it's hurting, it's burning bridges with people. We've been focusing on being professional guardians, having uniforms, being well trained, being visible with our logos on our boats and our trucks, showing them that stewardship and protection of land is important to fund, dealing with the illegal campers and restoring our salmon rivers. So after the 1984 Mears Island Tribal Park, the Lands Department in 2008 started an open house process to look at Kennedy Lake, ʔaʔuukmin Tribal Park. The root word is ʔaʔuk. ʔaʔuukmin, the place name for Kennedy Lake. ʔaʔuukmin means feast bowl. I think it's awesome. I hope it lives up to that name again, where it is so abundant in fish and mulch that it is a feast bowl. I see a mountain range of food, and that's why it was named ʔaʔuukmin. That was our second tribal park. And then in 2013, our third tribal park was declared in ʔiiḥmisʔas, Tofino Tranquil Inlets, in response to British Columbia approving a drilling permit for a gold mine in Tranquil Inlet. And in the 2008 Tribal Park Declaration, our elders said that mining is a non-permissible use in a ʔaʔuukmin Tribal Park. Mining goes against your drinking water plans, your spiritual bathing plans, your fishing plans, your tourism plans. It goes against so many other plans. A gold mine, there's gold mines in Italy that 2,000 years later, they're still poisoning rivers from a gold mine. And so we told the ministry, we did not approve a mine in Tranquil Inlet. Come consult with us about a tribal park for this year. And at the end of the year, I know we would declare our third tribal park, and mining would not be a permissible use. And so it has been. We kicked Imperial Metals off the mountain once, and they've had their permit alive for 10 years, 2013, 2023. If they successfully drilled that mineral vein and they said, oh, this is a 12-kilometer vein of quartz, so much percentage of that is gold, they would now economically have a right to say, you owe me 30 million not to that 12-kilometer vein. Now that I know it's 12 kilometers, now you owe me 30 million not to take it. Well, they've never drilled. We could probably compensate them the helicopter ride and the 10 years of permits and get them out of our hair, close it down. And we've been arguing with British Columbia not to reissue the permit. It's never going to open. It doesn't make sense for British Columbia to let them drill it and then have taxpayers pay them 30 million when it's not going to be open. It's not in Tla'aʔuukʷiʔatḥ law to allow them to wreck our homeland with a mine like that. But that was 2013. The following year, it was 2014. That was the 30th anniversary of Mears Island, and our whole homeland was declared a tribal park at that time. The peninsula of ʔallaʔuukʷiʔatḥ was our fourth tribal park, ʔiiḥmisʔas Tribal Park, including the district of Tofino. And that year, Mayor Josie Osborne she read aloud saying that we're the first municipality inside of a tribal park, which was awesome to hear. It was read aloud, the declaration was read aloud at the Tofino Community Hall by our beach keeper. Again, with our oral traditions, reading aloud invited everyone from Tofino to hear it being read aloud, that we're asserting our right to manage our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ as a tribal park, are trying to articulate it for English people to understand our tribal park system. And then 5 years later, our most recent tribal park declaration now includes our fifth tribal park, which goes out to the deep ocean vents, including making sure that we talk about our full ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ way out to the ocean where our whaling grounds are. So we've only gotten stronger and stronger. And nowhere in this story did you hear we surrendered our land, and we continue to take care of our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ because of our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. And like I said, when I started this, when you welcome people here on behalf of our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ, what an honor it is to do that. Because there's so much that we had to go through to get here today with our laws intact and our responsibility for the ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ owed to our ʔaʔuukʷiʔatḥ. And so we wanted to share this history with you so that you can hear it, know it, bleed it. Let it fill you up and give you strength. These are what we're fighting for our grandchildren. You know, if we got 1% from the provincial sales tax in our homeland, that would be 3.5 million a year. And if we had 1% from the federal GST that's collected, that's another 3.5 million a year that we'd be getting. And here we are arguing with each other about a longhouse or an athletic hall, or housing issues, or paving the road in ʔiiḥmisʔas, or a roof over the basketball court in ʔiiḥmisʔas. Arguing about what services to provide our people. When for 10,000 years we've been benefiting from our homeland and feeding our people very well. And we have a very rich homeland. And those other two governments are benefiting from it every year. So when we give reports of more allies coming, we still have more work to do. And we're doing it for the Masso, for our grandchildren to have a better future. Thank you. I think that'd be it. Thank you for listening so well. It's such an important thing for everyone to take on and to feel this inside you. It's our proud history. I really hope you guys get to tell your children of it or share it wherever you can. So it's an honor to work for you all and to keep fighting for the ʔałuukwi and our right to benefit. And we need our strength from our Masso for everyone here to keep us fighting for that and keep pursuing that. You know, there's still hotels that don't sign up. Wicked in the Shin does not pay money, does not collect, and it doesn't even come from the business owner. It comes from the client. People are already paying tons of money to come here. $400 hotel rooms. 1%, that's $4 on a hotel room. Oh, they go to the bar and drink and have dinner on a $100 bill. That's $1 to support longhouses, a maternity ward in Tofino so we can bear children again in our homeland. It's insulting that they would not. And that's why we did our declaration yesterday, and a press release will be going out asking businesses, it's time to sign up, to follow the protocols that exist in our tribal park. If you're a business, sign up to be an ally. And if you're a visitor, take the ʔiiḥmisʔas pledge to not impact our ʔałuukwi, our tribal parks while you're visiting them. So stay strong and keep pushing our leadership, to keep pushing for what's right and what's rightfully ours in our ʔałuukwi, and keep our strength strong. Lift up your ʔałuukwi, lift up your leadership, and keep your head high, everybody. Chew.